All right, here we go, Barry. So for all of you that are just tuning in, I just want you all to know that Barry is not driving. He is in his driveway. He has a house full of people and it's close quarters, and he wanted the sound and everything to be just right for this really rich conversation that we're about to have. I just wanted to kick it off with that because I definitely didn't want a bunch of comments or emails that are like, why are you interviewing people while they're driving? So
no, I promise I'm not driving.
thank you.
Yeah.
So welcome to AmeriCorps Alum Network. I'm Nikki Fiacco, and I'm the founder and the brainchild of these conversations that we're having with AmeriCorps alum or some default alums, which Barry will get more into his story as to how he became associated with the AmeriCorps Alumni Network. And we're just here to share resources and shared experiences of going through national service. We all had similar and different experiences, and I just thought it would be a great idea for all of us to come together and start learning from each other, sharing our skills, sharing our knowledge, providing professional development opportunities. And Barry Kleiman, is that correct? Did I say that right?
It.
Right.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yes, ma'am.
Has some really great resources to share from us, and decades and decades of experience with networking and finding jobs and all that good stuff. So before we dive in, for those of you who watched the video for the first time today, I'm Nikki Fiacco. I'm an AmeriCorps alum. I was a state national AmeriCorps member, and I served in 2011 through 2012. I served in Anne Arundel County, Maryland at a regional park where I supported volunteers on the environmental education programs in the regional park Quiet Waters. And then from there, I was hired by my site and went on to do all sorts of things. I was executive director of the State Service Commission in Maryland. I was also down in South Carolina for a little bit. And so I have really spent more than a decade just living in the world of national service. And I always say this, when I first started my service year with Volunteer Maryland, I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. I didn't even know I was signing up for AmeriCorps, but I'm really glad that I stuck it out. I made some lifelong friendship, and now I get to talk to AmeriCorps alum all across the country that are in different fields. And I, have an interview coming up here soon with an AmeriCorps alum who went through NCCC, had a transformative experience, and went into the world of pharmaceuticals. And I am so excited to share her conversation with you all. But today we are here with Barry Kleiman. And Barry, I'm going to let you introduce yourself. And you have a very interesting history of how you got connected to AmeriCorps alum. So I'm going to let you tell that story, and then we'll dive into some of the other expertise that you have. And I definitely want to touch on the book that you have, How the Truth Will Set You and Your Career Free. So Barry, take it away.
Thank you. Thanks, Nikki. And thank you for doing this. It is something that is, I believe, vitally important, what you're doing. I think AmeriCorps alums are a vitally important part of our national infrastructure. And I am not formally, or what could I say? I'm not officially, I don't know what the right word is, an AmeriCorps alum, and yet I am on AmeriCorps alum mailing list and have been included in all their transmissions and things of that nature. So I don't know if it's honorary. It kind of doesn't matter. It's nomenclature. But I've spent 50 years, everybody, in the executive search and executive development business. And I can promise you 50 years is a long time. I came to work with, as a byproduct of that experience and those experiences, I came to work with a large local AmeriCorps alum, an organization that was actually the largest sponsor of AmeriCorps alumni, AmeriCorps members in all of California, an organization called Barry Community Resources. And they literally, I don't know if they still are, but for many, many years, they were the largest sponsor of AmeriCorps members in the whole state of California. It's a large state. The executive director and I became very close friends, and I essentially wound up doing a number of, some of which I still have recordings for if anybody wants to see them, um, hands-on, in-person seminars, all-day teaching events, with some of their Vista, and still friends with some of the Vista, and that was, a bunch of years ago. From there, because we got quote a little notorious for some of the work that we did with the local BACR, I got asked to do some national programs, and these were, I guess, webinars. They were not video. This is pre-video, but post Alexander Graham Bell. And we recorded them all, and these were with alums from, I want to say, 40 states, all across the country. I funded it myself. I did a series of 5 of them, and I took people through what I have learned to be a process for understanding the game that you're about to play, or the game that we're all always playing with, as it relates to putting yourself out into the world beyond AmeriCorps. So anyway, at one point, I told Nikki this story. We were within a few days of actually becoming the career development resource for all AmeriCorps alumni.
And that was what year? I think you said 2008.
That's a good question, Nikki. I wish I could remember. It would be easy to look up, because the woman with whom we were in negotiation with to do this and had an MOU all written up, memo of understanding, the whole deal, was her name is Amity Tripp. And the only way for me to answer your question authentically would be to look up and see when Amity actually wound up leaving AmeriCorps. I don't know the answer, but fair enough, right?
Yeah.
And so from there, AmeriCorps management, as it were, leadership went through a few different changes and people, and anyway, the work that we did got put into a different segment. Leadership viewed career development, or how they wanted to go about it, a different way, which is fine. I mean, I was not making a lot of money to to do this. I was really there because when I first learned about AmeriCorps through Barry Community Resources, and I got involved with them as an entity, I was in their board meetings and talking about direction for them as it relates to life after AmeriCorps. I just fell in love with it. I just thought it was one of the coolest things, the coolest things I had seen. And I would always say that I think a gap year, a year of service should almost be, well, not should almost, I always believed it should be mandatory for people either coming out of high school or college. I know Israel has a mandatory serve a year or 2 in the Army, and this is not necessarily Army, but whatever. Giving a year back is I know it's hard. Yeah. But I also know it's educational and valuable from a growth standpoint, from a personal development standpoint, all these things. So anyway, I fell in love with it and have never backed off trying to help alums. And somehow, Nikki, you could tell me, I don't remember how we crossed paths. I don't remember. Hopefully you do.
Yeah, I do remember. I posted a link in the alumni LinkedIn, and I think you were one of the first people to comment and step forward and say, we had a great conversation one evening, and you just said, whatever you need, we can build courses, we can, share whatever. And I just thought, wow, like this is a community of people who, even if they are honorary AmeriCorps alums, are willing, want to give back and want to continue to support national service members. Something that you had mentioned that I think is worth pointing out is that, like, a national service year can be difficult and challenging. The majority of the people that I've been speaking to moved across country. Like, one of the biggest transitions for Aubrey Leverty, who was, I think, my second interview, said this was the first time that she'd ever been away from her family, like states away, like time zones away. So it can be very difficult. My service year wasn't challenging in the way of like, I had a second income coming in and I was kind of established. So it was sort of like a thing where I could spend a year, to your point, it wasn't a gap year, but it was a year of gaining experience in something that I was interested in. And you can't get that through university experience. You have experiential learning, but it's very different than going out into the community and serving and actually leading and building skills. So when you're finished with your service year, boom, you can go in, and we're going to talk about interviews and marketing yourself, but you can go in and you can talk about the projects that you did and how, a ranger didn't show up in my experience for, an after school project. And then, I had to run it or whatever. So I think that's one of the things that AmeriCorps can definitely provide, as well as the transformative, like eye-opening, wow, this community is really suffering. And I want to do everything that I can to support them. Okay, we're going to go into my favorite quote. And I'm going to butcher it and then you're going to fix it. So folks that are listening, like I said, I had a conversation with Barry, I think back in December of 2022. And we were talking about like networking, because I think I said on one of these interviews that my name should be Nikki Networking Fiacco, because I love networking. And I think my last interview, we had said that it's it's an upcoming interview. This is networking at the next level, right? Like this is 2023 networking through Zoom and LinkedIn. But you pointed out, Barry, that it's not just who you know or what you know, it's who knows what you know. And that is what can get you in the door. So let's just start there and tell me like how you came up with that, because it's true. Like, it doesn't matter who knows Nikki, because if they don't know what I know, then I'm just Nikki, right? So tell me, let's dive into that, because I think that is such a valuable piece. And
Sure.
if I said it wrong, correct
No,
me.
you actually did it. That was your best one so far. No, you did great. So I want to back up for a second because it ties together in general. And this is obviously, I'm very appreciative of the relationship that you and I have developed over the time. So I'm going to say it to you as though I've known you for 20 years and we can talk trash to one another, as it were.
Oh, no.
As opposed to like being, condescending or anything at all like that. So the simple truth is, me personally, I loathe the term networking. I understand the concept, obviously. I mean, I joke with people. I had LinkedIn before LinkedIn ever existed as my own database, right? I had one. I'm not at my home office, obviously, and I'm not driving, I promise. But I had a Rolodex, right? An old school pre-database. Yeah. And I counted at one point, it had north of 8,500 names of people who I had spoken with or got referred to or whatever. But that was my job, right? And but the part about networking, and it builds into this next thing that you asked me about, is I have this phrase, and for whatever it's worth, everybody write it down if you care to, or Nick, you write it down. But if people say your networking is your net worth, or your net worth is your network, that's how it's said, I believe. So I say if your net worth is your network, then your ability to connect with people is the currency that drives it.
That's money.
Okay, that's it, in my opinion. Okay, so I'll say it again. If your network is your net worth, and that we've all heard, I did not make that quote up. I'm sure you've heard it and whatever, right? But if your network is indeed your net worth, then the driving currency behind that is your ability to connect with people. So when people talk about networking in this kind of traditional sense, right, they view it as, I'm going to come and schmooze and give out my card and yada, yada, yada. Do what you want, y'all. But to me, that's what everybody else is doing. And again, if you do what everybody else does, you're going to get what everybody else gets. So if you can find ways to connect with people, right? It should be easy for you guys. You've already given, right? You already understand service, right? So to be in service to others is how you begin connecting. Not a friend and a mentor of mine, a gentleman named Joe Polish, just wrote a book, what's in it for them. If you have that mindset and keep trying to connect, deliver, give first without any expectation of getting back. Nikki, did I sign a $10 million or $30 million contract for this call?
Exactly.
Right.
Right.
I mean, right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's
you
a Sunday
mean
morning.
30 million doll hairs?
Exactly. It's a Sunday morning, right? It's context. It's Super Bowl Sunday.
Yes.
Right. I have a nephew's on the PGA Tour. He's playing golf right now. In right actually next to where the golf the Super Bowl is going to be. I'd love to be watching Max play, but we decided to do this, and I'm happy to do it. Right. I'm not looking for stripes on my sleeve or anything at all like that. You can pay me the 30 million in increments.
Yes.
But the idea is to give and then kind of see what happens. And you can't be afraid. You can, but I'm going to suggest to you not to be afraid of what comes back the other way, because ultimately water seeks its own level. Right? Water seeks its own level. There will be people. It happened to me 6 weeks ago who will abuse your goodness. There will be. I'm not here spitting sugar plum fairies and saying, kumbaya. People are people, and there will be people who will abuse your goodness. You can't let their behavior drive how you're going to behave, right? And how you're going to put yourself out into the market. You can, but I'm here to tell you again, as an older person and someone who, I don't want to turn this into about me, but if you were to go to my LinkedIn profile, you could read dozens of testimonials that people have written about me, and I'm proud of that. But what I'm most proud of about it, and this is what I'm trying to make to everybody else here, is almost invariably what the people who have kind enough to take their time to say something about me have written is the same. Barry's a good dude. He helped me do this. He helped me do that. And that's what, honestly, I'm most proud of, because that is what I try to put into the marketplace. It's who I am. It makes me able to sleep better at night, right? And then you find yourself connected to like-minded people. Right. There's a line in a Grateful Dead song: if you plant ice, you're going to harvest wind. And so anyway, so I want to get back to what you were saying, but I really need to make sure that the bedrock of what I would hope to impart on anybody who gives a crap and wants to listen to this is what I just said. So I know Nikki is not transactional, but if you go into these networking episodes in a transactional mindset, that's what you're going to get back.
Yeah.
That's what you're going to get back. So
absolutely. I want to touch on some, I was just writing down some notes because you triggered a few things that I remember. One thing that I wanted, like that quote that you said about if your net worth is your network.
If your network, yeah.
And I like, this is something that I had to lean into, and I want anybody that is questioning your worth or your value, is that what you hold in your Rolodex in your brain, or your Rolodex on LinkedIn, or however you keep track of the people that you are interacting and connecting with, that nobody can take that away from you. So if you have to leave a position, or you're moving into a position, or you're not getting a fair shot, what you have to understand is you have human capital that you can spend. And that is something that nobody can ever take away from you. So nurturing relationships is so important as you go through your career. And even if you're starting over, right? Even if you're starting in something new, you can still find the connections. And then two other things I just wanted to mention was, you said, like if you go into your networking experiences as transactional, or like you want to kind of stand out, right? Like you want people to come up and talk to you. And the craziest and most fun things that I ever heard was, instead of being like, oh, hey, Barry, like, what do you do for a living or whatever? It's just so boring,
Yep.
or like,
Yep.
or I introduce myself and I'm like, I'm Nikki Fiacco, and I work for Transform Mid-Atlantic, and they're based out of Hood College, and it's just a bunch of blah, blah, blah. But if you go up to somebody and you're like, hey, Barry, what are you super jazzed about right now? People just look at you like, wait, you really want to listen to me? And I think coming up with maybe one or two or three interesting questions like that is much more profound than going into a networking situation and a networking situation, or a time with a group of people that, whatever. And then also thinking about, how do you want to represent yourself? Like, what do you want what's important for them to know and to remember from you after you've interacted together? And yeah, I think those were the things that I thought
Mhm.
really kind of fed off of what you said about like standing out. Oh, the other thing is in service, right? I will tell you, my brain works like this. I will be having a conversation with somebody. They'll tell me what they do, who they know. And all of a sudden that Rolodex is going crazy on the other side of my brain. I'm like, who can I connect them to? Who do they need to know? What projects do they need to know about? Do they know this person? And so it's not even about like, how could Nikki leverage this interaction for my good? It's more about like, and oftentimes I introduce people like this. You guys just need to know each other. You need to know what he's doing, and you need to know what she's doing. And again, kind of going into the conversation or the networking situation in service to others. So
In
those are
service,
my
in
thoughts.
serve. No. Look, on my, I've got a couple of websites because I too have a nonprofit, which I've told you about. But on my barrykleiman.com, the title page says "Share the Ball." I'm a basketball coach, but that's the title page. It's a picture of me from a bunch of years ago with one of my favorite players I've ever coached. But the idea behind, he's the best passer I've ever coached. But the idea behind it all is share the ball, and so that's. But I wanted to bring it up before I get into, it's not what you know, it's who knows what you know, because this to me precedes that, and to me, this the way I would talk to people about career and career development and overall development is this genuine connectivity mindset. Okay. I know it's hard, by the way, everybody. I know it's hard, right? Because you got to eat. I get it. Been there, done that. Right. But being transactional is not a scalable model. And if every day you wake up and you have to make new friends to get what it is, you're trying to get, and to start a whole new network, because you burn, what's that for? You burn the boats on your last one, or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just a hard way to go. And so, but I know you're also not taught that in many forums, right? Like career services offices and colleges, their model is different, right? If you get a job, they think they did, that's it. You went to wherever and we got you a job, and so see ya. That's their model, right? But you have to have a different model for your life, right? And the way that you want your kind of brand to be. And that brand word, Nikki, I'm going to segue that into what you opened this conversation with, because I don't want to wax on, but I do need to make sure that I'm being clear. You don't have to agree with me, but I want to make sure that on this call that I am clear about that would be my message to anybody and everybody with whom I have an opportunity to speak. So it's not what you know, it's who knows what you know, right? So life in general, and again, this is not usually taught, is about that quote, right? In other words, every year from universities across the country, high schools, whether you go to high school, college, whatever, there are how many people who graduate with degrees in liberal arts, finance, accounting, chemistry, name the major, right? How many? Hundreds, if not thousands, yeah?
Yeah.
Fair enough?
Hundreds of thousands.
Yes,
yeah.
Right? And then it becomes exponential, right? Because that was the what year are we right now? 2023. What about the 2022 graduating class of that same major in the 2021 and the 2020? And so there are right now how many thousands of people roaming the world with degrees in X? What's to differentiate them? Right? What's the difference? Well, I went to Cal, or I went to, you're back in Maryland, Towson, or
right?
Yeah, you're, I'm a Terp, I'm a, whatever, right? Nobody cares, right? Nobody cares. But when they know what you know, right, and how that might be able to help them, right, then all of a sudden they begin to care. And so your job is to figure out who needs what, right, and find a way to let them know that you can supply what without being a blowhard in a networking conversation, right? So I just want to give everybody an example. So the game becomes this game of marketing, but before you start to market, you have to understand who needs what, right? As far as your background. Domino's Pizza, quick example, everybody. I'm going to compare us all to Domino's Pizza. Domino's Pizza is not the best pizza in the world. People might like it, it's fine. But Domino's, no pun, the cheese doesn't come from highly nurtured cows, and the flour is not this, that, or the other thing, and the sauce is not whatever. But what Domino's did to grow their brand was they, what is it, 20 minutes faster, free, whatever that tagline was, right, Nick? I don't remember what it was. And they put all their stores within a short distance to college campuses, where there were students staying up late at night, sometimes maybe a little stoned or loaded or whatever, but minimally hungry, studying. Or sober, right? But my point is, but hungry nonetheless.
Yes.
And so, Domino's Pizza grew their brand with not necessarily great pizza, but quick delivery to get you and I fed in a reasonably good quality and reasonably priced, but quickly. And if you think about it, that was the market that they served. I live up in Berkeley, California. It's kind of a foodie world, right? Not a lot of Domino's in Berkeley. There's one, right? But that's not the market, right? Even though there's a campus there, you know what I'm saying? And so that those companies, they understood where their market was and then how to serve them. So it's no different from you and I. If you have a degree in chemistry or math or whatever it is, now you have to find markets that need that, and then you have to be able to explain how what you know and your spin on it and how you communicate might help somebody else, right? And you can't, people get very frustrated, understandably. Look, I was in the jobs business for 50 years. I filled far fewer jobs that I worked on than filled.
Were you a recruiter? Is that correct?
Yeah. I was a headhunter for 50 years. Yeah. I only ate what I killed, so to speak, not to get credit, but you had to find people jobs you didn't need. Right? Yeah. But along the way, I never wanted to be that commodity guy who burned bridges every time. And again, I'm not bragging. I'm trying to make a point for all of you. again, look at the LinkedIn profile. Nobody ever called me a sneak or a thief or a liar or, whatever. More like Barry really helped, even if he didn't find me a job. That's what I wanted my brand to be. So all of you have to decide how you want to be known in the market, right? And again, it's not what you know, it's who knows what you know. And then find ways to get that transmitted to people by always helping first. In this day and age, one example I give, and Nikki, I'm happy to share it with you and your audience here if they like. But I taught a course down at a seminar in Florida a few years ago for a conference. It was actually called Generation W. It's a large women's event. Actually, the person who ran it's an old friend of mine. I taught a class called Leveraging LinkedIn. And it's not, and the idea, my tagline from it is it's not what you know, it's who you know. It's you either stand out or blend in this life. On LinkedIn, there's ways to stand out where you don't have to sit and pontificate about how brilliant you are. You can contribute to conversations in other ways. Gee, Barry, that's a really interesting spin. I read something like this in a book, but I didn't think twice about it. But the way you said it makes more sense to me.
So are you saying like commenting on somebody? Okay.
100%, but in a way that's not,
I know. Okay. Yeah.
Right. It's more contributory. Yeah. Wow, that is a really interesting perspective. Or, geez, that's so good. I need to reread. It reminds me of a book I read that I put down, and and I will just tell you that each week I do this still. I'm no longer in the search business. But I still do it genuinely because it's interesting to me to be in touch with people. Sorry about that, guys.
That's okay. That's a really good point. So I'll definitely drop this tip in the link in the comments. But for those of you who may have missed, because Barry kind of like easily was just like, if you want to leverage your LinkedIn, which I know most of you that are watching this are on LinkedIn because you're the ones that reached out and said, yes, Nikki, do this.
Right.
A way to stand out and not blend in is to make comments on LinkedIn, but not comments about yourself or your knowledge, but comments about the person posting. And you know what that reminds me of? And this is super superficial and it listed
not at all, nothing
rudimentary example, but when people say acknowledge somebody's birthday and then they talk about themselves, like Barry, you have helped me do all of these things. And now I'm doing these things because I can do these things, right? No, it's about Barry and his birthday. And I think that that is such a helpful tip. And I'm going to use it. I'm definitely going to use it.
Ironically, what you just said, Nikki. So in this video, and again, I'm happy to share it. It is part of a kind of a quote unquote private group of videos that I use for my fifth quarter project, my nonprofit. But I'm happy to share it. But with AmeriCorps people. In that video, what you just said, I talk about. There was a woman in my class that day, and she looked across the room and she saw a professor of hers from 7, 10, I don't remember, years ago. And she saw, oh my God, Dr. Levin, she's hugging and hugging. It was adorable, right? And it was complete coincidence. But I took that example in this class and said, you lost track of, his name is Dr. Richard Lapchick, amazing man. But now you see him. So you think it would behoove you to send him a birthday card or now that you're back in touch with them, or reach out to them every once in a while, or drop a quick note. And again, if nothing comes of it, nothing comes of it, right? Sorry about the camera movement.
You're good. We're good.
Yeah. But you just put it out there. You can't keep score in this game, right? Of connectivity. I mean, you can if somebody is being an ass, just cross them off the list. Doesn't matter who they are. Right. But you keep trying to, again, water seeks its own level. Does that quote, I just said that for the first time, as far as explaining this, does that resonate, Nikki, with what I'm trying to say about how you connect with people? You're trying to find like-minded people, and people who you could successfully collaborate with both from ethos perspective, and so forth and so on. So anyway, that what you just said is 100% accurate. And, all depending on who the person is, right? I mean, one of the greatest investments you can make, everybody, is I don't know how much stamps cost these days, but
Yes.
a postcard, but a handwritten postcard.
Yeah, I'll
Right.
give
And
such a great
yeah.
example. When I started it as executive director of the Maryland State Service Commission, there were a bunch of commissioners, several commissioners who were cycling off. They had filled their term, and but they were phenomenal. And I said to them, I said, I feel like a freshman player getting on the team where all the seniors are graduating, and I need some of you to stay. And so, I didn't do this on purpose to keep them on, but I wanted to personally thank them. So I wrote every single commissioner a handwritten thank you note. And by the 5th, 6th, 10th one, my handwriting was so bad. But one of the commissioners that was so instrumental and so important to support me through that position told me that he stayed on because I sent him a personal thank you letter. And so I know it seems cliche, but it's not. It's 2023. People are like, how is this really mail, right? Like, I love it when I get stuff in the mail. So that's a good point. One of the things I wanted to circle back around, and if you have something else to close out this thought,
let me just add one more thing to what you just said real quickly. Everybody grab a pen. If you feel like, write it down if you want. The emptiest mailbox in the world is the one at the end of your driveway. Which is to say, how many emails do you get every day, Nikki?
Yeah, hundreds.
Hundreds, right?
Yeah.
Me too, right? Me too. And I'm not that important, right? And I'm retired from my search business, so it's not, but still, it's crazy, right? When you just said it, when you get that postcard or that letter. Quick story. I've been out of town. I was sick, as I told you, and I really miss my grandkids. And so I found them. I went to Target one day and I found a couple little just stupid gifts for them. A Spider-Man for my grandson and what the hell is that thing? Oh, Paw Patrol little drawing pads for right. Anyway, and I put them in an envelope. And I mailed them to my grandkids, right? My daughter sent me a video of them opening these packages, and they were more excited to open the thing than although the Spider-Man thing got a lot of traction. But in either case, there's something about it, right? And so you can't obviously do it, with everybody, but you'll find that the people who you can physically write to, are going to wind up to be the people with whom you're more connected to, because you have that, relationship. And we, last thing about it is, your job, in my opinion, in this life, to be able to connect with people better, is to turn a digital world analog.
What does that mean? Tell me what that means.
Well, basically what it means is, we're in a digital world. We send email. And when you wrote those 5 postcards or however many you wrote, that's analog. Right. That's you writing down, you speaking, whatever. You're not texting. Texting is to say, I'll be there at 8 o'clock, or I'm 10 minutes late, or, whatever it is. But Barry, I can't thank you enough for the time you spent. I just wanted to, I can't fill it all in this postcard, but I did want to make sure you saw this and blah, blah. And it's taking the time. So, you all have to decide, and then we're going to move on, Nikki, one more time, but you all have to decide how you want to try to connect. Now, this falls on deaf ears. I've wasted your time, and I apologize for that, but that's, I'm just trying to tell you what I believe. And Nikki asked me to come on, so that's it. So move on, Nick. I'm sorry.
No, this is great. And it's true. And it's, I believe, I said before we hit recording, like, for you all listening, we were chatting about 15, 20 minutes before we got on here. I'm like, okay, we got to just start recording because we were going to have such a rich conversation. But one of the things that you said when we first started talking, I think we started chatting about resumes, and you said it's not just like the resume is a tool, but there's so many more things that are wrapped around. So what credence do you give towards resumes? Because I know that that's something I totally stress out about. Is it supposed to only be one page? Am I covering everything? Am I writing too much? Am I hitting the things? like what credence do you give to resumes? And then maybe touch in some of the your book, which is, I think I said the title, How the Truth Will Set You and Your Career Free. You talk a lot about marketing yourself. And you know, let's dive into a little bit about
Sure.
that. But first, how stressed out about resumes should we get?
Well, it's a great question, right? And I'm going to probably be Lucifer here, when I say this, but again, it's just my experience, right? I'm just sharing with you the lessons of 50 years trying to find jobs for people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm sharing. You don't need to believe it. It's up to you, right? But these are my lessons. This is what I've learned. So if you think about this logically, I believe, frankly, that the lowest ROI in the entire job search process is the time that people spend writing their resume. Not that you don't need a good resume. That's not the point, right? But if you think about it like this, right? So you spend, well, I don't know, Nikki, early on, let me toss it back to you. When you were writing resumes, your own, how many hours would you spend writing a resume?
Yeah, I mean, it would usually take me about an hour and a couple hours to put the content down. But then I would run it through a couple of my friends. To be honest with you, my mom is my copy editor on every single thing that I do.
Sure.
She was an English major, and she got me through university, my undergraduate, and she also got me through my graduate certificate with University of Maryland. So, I mean, honestly, if I saw a job post, it would take me at least a week before I would actually apply for that position. And that would include, I would do the resume first, and then the cover letter was the killer for me. Like, that was something that I was like, oh my gosh, how do I pull out the right story to, so yeah, I mean, it would take me weeks for resumes.
Sure.
I mean, I was like, I got to the point where I'm like, I want to just pay somebody to do this.
So the reason I get it, and that's where everybody goes with this, right? So to go back to the opening quote, it's not what you know, it's who knows what you know, right? So you take this resume, right? What is a resume is basically a collection of facts, I mean, is that right? I mean, I don't want to, that's what I believe. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. I mean, it's true, because they're going to ask you about,
right?
Yeah,
it's your
exactly.
name and your address and where you went to school and, your major, right? I mean, that's really what it is, right?
Yes.
I mean, even if you have 40 years of experience, it's still a collection of those facts. Yeah. So, I hate to keep doing this to you guys, but it's just how I roll, I guess. I believe 100%. I don't think I'm the first person ever said this, but whatever. Facts tell, but stories sell. Right. And facts are facts, right? I was a math major. Okay. What does it do remember, let's rewind the whole thing back. What does it do for me? Right? Me, the buyer, right? And then there's one more thing. You can what's that quote, Nick? If a tree falls in the forest, but there's nobody there, does it actually make noise?
Right.
Right. So you could write this resume, but until you can get that resume, that collection of facts, into the hands of a person who has the power to make a decision on what to do with it,
yes,
your ROI is kaput, right? You can hire resume writers for, thousands of dollars, and they can write some pretty cool looking resumes. But until they can tell you that document is in the hands of somebody who has the opportunity to make a decision about what to do with it, right? It's a waste of time. So just tell me if what I just said, because again, I'm adamant about this, but I don't want to come off as an ass. This is just my experience, right? And look, it's how I made my living, right? Because people would send me their resumes and then tell me, Barry, get
Connect
it
to
to the
me.
right person at the right
Yeah.
time, right? I'm not a
Yeah.
resume writer. I can write resumes, whatever, but my job is deliverability,
You know,
right?
I agree with you on this. I mean, when I was deep in a job search, I factually, I got further along in the interview when I knew people that were doing, not maybe not the hiring, but they knew the people that were doing the thing, doing the hiring. And honestly, like this is one of the reasons why I wanted to start these conversations with AmeriCorps alumni, is
Sure.
that there are thousands of individuals in this LinkedIn group
Yep.
that might be the ones making those decisions. And I've already seen, like, over the past couple of days in the LinkedIn group, there's more than 20 or 30 opportunities where somebody is hiring for either their organization or somebody they know. And that's why I think that these conversations are so important, and that we have, like, us AmeriCorps alum, we need to stay connected, because, my son might be looking for a job. I might
Yep.
be looking for a job. I might be hiring, and I'm more likely to hire somebody who's an AmeriCorps alum within our network, than to go for somebody else. So I 100% agree that you got to get your resume into the hands of the people who can make a decision one way or another. I've gotten far enough along into the interview process, and I got to the very end, and it was like, sorry, no, thank you. I'm like, what? Like, well, and then
It
that's when
doesn't
I'm just
work
like, well,
most of
that's
the
your,
time,
yeah, it
right? I
does
mean,
not
it
always
doesn't work
work.
most of the time. I mean, that everybody
Yeah.
needs to get that also, right? Just
Yeah.
because somebody doesn't pick you doesn't mean you did wrong. It's just they didn't pick you, right? It's like
Yeah.
go to a restaurant and look at the menu. I mean, just because somebody doesn't order the whatever doesn't mean it's bad. They
Yeah.
just had a different idea, right? Or whatever. And oftentimes they're wrong, by the way, just to be clear, but that's out of your control, right?
Right.
And so to go back to the resume, so the resume is, you talked about the book. So the book is really a book about, and I don't want the title to scare anybody. And again, Nikki, if anybody on this call wants a copy, you can post a link somewhere. I asked you
Yeah.
to send me $2 so I can cover the shipping, and also so I know you're real. But I'll also send you back the $2 if it breaks you. I really will in this group. But the book is it's a 12-chapter book, right? And if I'm not mistaken, the chapter on resumes is either number 9 or 10. I don't have it in front of me.
I will confirm.
Right.
You keep talking.
Right. So, and the reason it's 9 or 10 is not that it's not important. It is important. It's a vehicle to deliver some messaging. But if you think that, most people write a resume and think they're looking for a job. Most people write a resume, they send it to Indeed, and oh, I'm looking. No, you're not. Trust me, you're not, because that's what everybody else is doing, right? And so at some point, you need to decide how badly you want this job, and then find ways to make sure that your resume, and we can get into cover letters, which is a whole other conversation, which I'm glad you brought it up, Nikki, because I believe deeply in them. I am in countless conversations about, well, they don't exist anymore. It's all algorithm. You can make it an algorithm if you choose to use it as an algorithm, but I can promise you, if you want to pay me a commensurate amount of money, I'll get your resume and cover letter into the hands of the right person, because that's what I do. Right. But that, it's not a special skill. It's just, that was my job, right?
Yeah.
But the point I'm trying to make is resume or cover letters are great, but until you understand how the machinery works, that this is a marketing endeavor. You are the product, and you got to find ways to get your product to the market, right? And it has to be the right market, and you can't take it personally. You don't know what's going on in the other person's life. They could have just been coming off a root canal, or God forbid, a divorce or something worse.
Yeah.
And when it hits you, you don't know that, right? Which is why I also talk about continuing to follow up, right? In the book, you would read that most of the jobs that I filled in my life, most of them, and that's, again, many, many decades, were not the job that was originally opened in the first place for a person. It was, hey, Barry, remember that guy you sent me or that woman you sent? Are they still available? Because we just opened up. You guys give companies too much credit. They don't know what the hell they're doing either. In many cases,
Love that.
It's true. I mean, and they would admit it, right? So you have to be resolute with your process. And the other thing I want to just say, as far as the title of the book is concerned, the truth. I don't know the truth, right? I'm not trying to tell you I'm some omnipotent soul. I'm not. I'm just like you, right? But the truth is kind of what you see when you look at yourself in the mirror in the morning. How bad do you want what you say you want, and to what ends are you willing to go to, try to make it happen? I don't mean in a nefarious way. I mean, are you willing to outwork and outmarket, right, the other person, right? Again, dominoes. I mean, there's some pretty kind of okay products in the world that have just won the marketing game because they were able to get their message to the people, and they finally choose, that thing, even if there are other products that are similar. You can't believe that what you are is so completely unique that somebody should just see it and know it and say, oh God, well, I've met Barry Kleiman, I've met Nikki. Boom. So it becomes this process, right? And that's what I want to say is the truth about it. So first, it's your truth. How bad do you really want it? I hear people, I've taught countless seminars, they rehearse this elevator pitch. Is that the pitch that somebody wants to hear at that moment?
Right. Yeah.
Right. I mean, are you just, I wrote about it in the book. I'm old, right? There was this doll when I was growing up called Chatty Cathy. And, it was a doll, and you pulled a cord at the back of Chatty Cathy's neck, and she had about 4 spiels. I'm hungry. I want, you can't turn into Chatty Cathy, right? You have to be this person that is, first listening and responding to conversations and so forth. And this is, what sets you apart. So I feel badly for people who don't view the job market and the hiring process and this what you and I are talking about in any way other than any other reality, of life, buying products at the supermarket, waiting in line when you don't feel like it. I mean, there's just this human nature component to this that is not algorithmic. It's human nature. And that's what you need to understand. So I hope I'm not being too divergent, but it's important to me that everybody gets this.
I think you're bridging to something that maybe we can close on, because I think that this is important to touch on too. In your experience with like placing people,
yes, ma'am.
Did you provide, so that towards the end of the interview, you have 5 minutes left or whatever, and they're like, oh, do you have any questions for us? And it's like, could you offer any suggestions? I have this one phrase that I say that is corny, but I think that it like I stand apart from others. And I'm like, is there anything that you haven't heard from me today for you to know that I'm actually the person that you want to hire? And they just look at me like, how do I answer that question? And it's I purposefully say that because it's an awkward question. But what are some things that maybe people should take into consideration about like almost interviewing the people that, once they've gotten in the door, they've used the tool. Oh, and by the way, resume was chapter 10. So you were spot on. But what are maybe 2 or 3 questions that people should, or things to consider asking in the interview?
And by the way, great question. And an important question. Again, one more thing, if you want, I don't have it in front of me. Again, not driving, but in my car, I don't have all my resources. I have a couple of YouTube channels. Again, I'm not selling anybody anything. It's 100% free. One of them is I've answered LinkedIn's 26 most asked interview questions. LinkedIn had this AI, right? They decided what the 26 most asked interview questions were. up to them, however they figured it out. And I sat down and I looked at them and I said to myself, and they gave their own answers. And then I said, okay, that's fine. Let me tell you how I would answer them.
Wow.
Based on what I believe. And what I would tell you, Nikki, if you came to me, Barry, I'm really vexed. And this is what I would tell you if you were my daughter, if you were my wife, whatever, right? This is what I would say. So there is an expanded version of that, and again, I'll share the links with you if you'll remind me. But to go back to your question, so there's a continuity to the way that I believe all this goes down, because I said it a minute ago, all this is about human nature.
Mm-hmm.
All right, because it's one human to another, this whole process, right? It just is. Your ability to connect is what's going to drive your net worth. Okay. Mm-hmm. So to take that comment and to answer your question, hey, Barry, do you have any questions for me? I argue this, Nikki, and I'll argue it until I can no longer speak. The very first question I would ask somebody, had it not come up previously, right, in the context of the conversation, sure, is, hey, Nikki, I would actually, and this is the very first question I would ask, would you mind telling me something about you?
Wow.
That's what I would ask. Now,
interesting.
So we've talked, I don't know, 2-3 times now, and this is, you're stunned, maybe you're surprised by the comment, but being surprised, but knowing me a little bit and having shared dialogue with me a bit, why do you think that would be my first question?
I feel like it levels the playing ground a little bit and brings out the humanity. Like, you're sitting across the table from a person. It may seem like it's a person with power over your future, maybe, but when you learn something about them, it brings down that guard, where now maybe they're connecting with you now on a human level.
Let's say that word again. They're what with me?
They're connecting with you.
Whoa, one more time. But that's the point.
I said the right thing, folks.
Yeah, right. That's the point.
A connection.
And so,
yeah.
So, and somebody might say, well, look, no, this is not about me. It's about you. Okay. You now know that person at that level.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. You now know that person at that level. Or they might say, well, sure. What do you want to know about? I personally would say, really, frankly, anything you care to share. But this is, I've talked a lot about me. Hopefully you learn me a little bit, but I would really love to know more about you. I see you have a trophy behind you where you were, is that fencing, or I see you were a golfer. I read on your LinkedIn profile that you were, you finished third in the NCAA single, golf, tennis, whatever it is. What I've played some tennis. What was that like? And now you turn interrogation into conversation. And this is the goal, right? And again, you're trying to connect with somebody. And so that would be, without any doubt, my first question. And again, I argue all the time, but it's been my experience, just trying to share, with the audience, or your audience here, what I would say, because connection is that important to me. And so that would be it, without doubt. To go from there, I would delve more into the job, and you could say, look, there was my second kind of tier of questions was, I wanted to make sure that I understood, if you don't mind, one more thing about the job. Back a few minutes ago, you mentioned XYZ, and I was clear about X and Y, but not 100% Z, but I didn't want to interrupt the conversation at the time. Would you mind rewinding that just so I'm clear about it?
That's great.
So clarity about the job, so people realize you're listening, as opposed to sweeping it under the rug.
Yeah. We'll figure it out once you hire me.
Right. So now, again, and what is it? It's now conversation. Right. It's now conversation. And so I could go on. Again, I wrote about it in the book a little bit, but certainly salary never comes up to me. It's not the time and place yet. at
Yeah.
all, right? In any way, shape, or form. The next thing I would really talk about, honestly, is internal customers. So you
Mm.
could say, well, when you mention Z, so we rehash Z. So whatever Z was, right, in this thing that I didn't understand.
Yeah.
Who are my internal customers to make Z happen? Because if I know who they are and I know what they need to happen, I'm going to be successful, right? So
Yeah.
who are they? How do they fit in? And then it's a little deeper dive into the job, right? And ultimately, by the way, my fifth one is future. And you can say, hey, look, Nikki, I get it. Just one other question. If I did everything we just said and did it really, really
Yeah.
well, what's today, Nick? February 12th.
Mm-hmm.
On February 12th of 2025, where could a job like this lead?
Oh, wow. That is great.
So
I
2
love
years
that.
ahead, right? Two
Yeah.
years ahead, did everything you asked me to do, checked every single box. I'm not looking for a guarantee. I'm just looking for options so I can see the future, because the future matters to me, right? I'm
Yeah.
not here to just, dig ditches for the rest of my life, so to speak. But if digging ditches leads me to a lead contractor role where I'm supervising, that's kind of what I would want to know. But you preface it with this 2-year thing so the person on the other side of the desk understands that you're just not walking into looking for an instant promotion. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that it's powerful in a way that you're not looking for an instant promotion, but you're somebody that has a vision and has goals,
Yeah.
and it's showing that, like, and I plan on being here for at least 2 years, and I'm hoping
There
to
you go.
grow within your organization. Wow,
Yeah.
that was really good. I'm not
And
looking
so
for a job anytime soon, but I'm going to make sure I write that
no,
down
it's
somewhere.
it's fine. And then I mean, look, I teach a whole course on just interviewing, but the last thing I want to say about what you just asked me, that group of questions is in many companies you might interview 4 or 5 people, right?
Yeah.
That group of questions is, I mean this in the best of ways, generic, modular. You could ask those same questions to every single segment of the people across every single interview. So when they all convene later, what'd you think of Barry? What'd you think? I don't know. He asked me that. Oh, he asked me that too. That's a good thing, because it shows that you have a very specific vision for yourself and a very specific thing that you're looking to find out. And so if consistency is their biggest complaint about you,
Yeah.
that's cool, as opposed to trying to make it up as you go along, because now you're kind of scared. I wonder why he didn't ask me that. That would have been a better question for me. So this level of consistency shows that you've thought through what you're trying to get out of this. So never be afraid to be consistent across the board, as opposed to reinvent the wheel with each person you're meeting with. So that's
Yeah.
my last comment. Does that make sense, Nikki?
Yeah, that was wow. This was yes, my mind is blown. And it's like so helpful because you can Google these questions and you can get responses, but like you said, you spent however many years placing people and getting people ready for job interviews and everything. So to hear your suggestions, and to know that you have a space in your heart specifically for AmeriCorps alumni, it's important for us to take this in. It's just such valuable information, and this has been the longest conversation that I've had. And
Sorry, Nick.
so no, it's great. And I'm hoping that everybody who tuned in are still listening, or they're going to come back and listen, because I think that to like speak into your value and to show up as the person that you want to be, going way back to the beginning of our conversation, deciding how you want to show up and how you want to market yourself and who you want to be to other people, that will bring you full circle to be able to ask those questions during the interview in your full integrity. And to me, integrity is my number one value. Anybody who's close to me understands that my word Like sometimes I say things just to hold myself accountable for, I put it out there. I said I was going to put these podcasts out, and then I had to do
Yeah.
it.
Good on you.
So that, yeah, I think everything that you said during our conversation, I feel like there's still so much more I have for you, but I want to thank you so much for your time. I know you weren't feeling well, and
I'm
you're
fine
sitting
now,
in a
but thank you.
car,
I am not driving.
not driving. And just continuing this conversation all the way back from November of last year. And you've said some really kind words to me, and I, we've just met over social media, over LinkedIn, and over a couple of Zoom videos and chats back and forth. And I just really thank you for spending the time with this group and sharing your knowledge and offering to share all those links. I will definitely follow up and make sure that they're in the notes on this this YouTube.
Sure.
What are any last words or anything that you want this group to take away from? And then did you want to touch on a little bit about the fifth quarter project and what that is? And, I just want to hold space for that as well.
Sure. You're kind. I mean, yeah, the fifth quarter project is it's my own iteration of AmeriCorps alums. But and the way I said that it is so I've I've coached high school basketball. I don't anymore, but I coached for 25 years. I was involved in it at many levels, and we even won a little bit, but that's neither here nor there. One of the things that I learned along the way is the path that athletes who don't get to make the bulk of their living playing the sport that they love, and what happens to them. And they become, many of them, not all, and there's no all-inclusive anything, by the way.
Right.
But many of them get into a pretty deep funk. And they've, in many ways, sold their soul to the game, and now have really not sure where to turn. And many of them didn't really pay as much attention in the classroom as they might have, or or whatever. Their priorities kind of got out of whack, and so now you're, however old you are, and past playing prime. Let's just put it at that. Thus the name, the fifth quarter, and now you kind of have nowhere to turn. So because I saw so many of these people, and I used to get calls from college coaches, "Hey Barry, can you help so and so? Can you help so and so? Can you help so and so?" And I finally realized this was its own pandemic of people, and so I founded the Fifth Quarter Project, and we build cohorts of people. They have to apply. I don't charge anybody a nickel. I try to get foundational funding and private funding, whatever. But we build cohorts. People have to apply. They have to tell me that they're willing to do what it is we're asking them to do, because it is a paradigm shift. I'm sure, Nikki, in many ways, a little bit like what I've suggested to what some people believe is the process. And anyway, so we try to help people, go from where they are to where they want to be. All they need to do, and you'll appreciate this as somebody who's served, is if we help them, then they need to go back into the community from where they came and provide 100 service hours in a year, 2 weeks, 2 hours a week for a year. I won't audit it. You're on your own. If you want to be you want to try to game the system, then that's who you are. And I don't have time to worry about it. I don't, that's on you, not me. And that's really what. So it's an offshoot of, frankly, so many of the programs that I've worked with AmeriCorps on. And again, I have all kind of links to videos of other classes I've taught, and with groups of Vista, and so forth and so. But that's really, what it is, because, honestly, I can't teach geometry, Nikki. I'm a terrible speller. Blah blah blah. So this is what I've learned, and in my own kind of ethos, whatever you want to call it, I'm just trying to share the ball with what I know. I feel bad for people who take what's human nature and they take it personally, as opposed to have a bigger plan for themselves. Because, so much of this doesn't work right all the time. And it's more like being resolute and the truth about what you really want to happen, and just be willing to grind. You're going to be disappointed by people, along the way, but just don't disappoint yourself. Right. And that's kind of the support that, we try to provide, both with AmeriCorps and fifth quarter. So that's what it's all about. I do have another course that I've started teaching. I'm finishing the book on interviewing. It's called Successful Interviewing. I think interviewing is one of the most misunderstood things going. And the last thing I'll say about it is, if you Google interview tips, you do it right now, you're going to come up with at least 3 commas worth of tips on interviewing. I did one search where I think it was 9 billion tips.
Oh my gosh.
The search numbers vary. My point to people is, which are you going to choose?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, but again, there has to be a methodology and a systematic way to approach it based on what you want to happen. Right. And build your process around that, and be able to share stories. This, Nikki, by rote. It intuitively. Right. But so many people go, well, I'm going to go and interview tomorrow. Let me Google some interview tips.
Yeah.
And then they ask these pedestrian sort of questions, and all of a sudden they're like everybody else. So anyway, that's kind of what I know. And again, I'm happy to share this with all you guys. And I want to thank you for having me on and taking the time to listen to an old dude. And if you want to, kind of do a redo or a part 2, I'm here to serve, honestly, and happy to help. But I think everybody on this call, again, is this the second or third time we've spoken, Nikki?
I think we've spoken, maybe 3 times now, but we have been communicating via email and yeah.
So the point I'm trying to make, Nikki and I feel very fortunate to know her, but it's not like we go way back or anything at all like that. But I think you should all be grateful to her for taking on this tool, right, and providing you with perspective of other people and other people's points of view. In the Fifth Quarter Project, I've interviewed dozens of people, CFOs, CMOs, authors, speakers, former pro athletes, all to provide their own perspective on how their careers have developed. So Nikki's doing the exact same thing, right, or almost exact same thing with some of the people that she's bringing to you. So you really should at least consider the message that she's trying to bring to you, because I know it's with all good intent and helpful. And so anyway, so I thank you, Nikki, for what you're trying to do for the rest, and a little bit here, a little bit there. Maybe we can all get a little bit better,
Yeah.
So anyway, so thank you for having me on, and I appreciate it. And I'm here to serve. Like I said, if I can help in any way, please don't be a stranger. Will I have a chance to view a replay of this?
Absolutely. That was so kind. Thank you so much. That was so kind, and I appreciate it. And I do, it's been so much fun getting to know people. The conversation, I have pre-conversations with people just to kind of get an understanding of where they're coming from, so I can get my thoughts together. I love talking and interviewing people. And it's just, they keep pouring in through LinkedIn and messaging. So I am excited. I don't know where this is going, but I think it's going in a great direction. So let's close out. So Barry, this was great. And for folks that are still listening in, we will have all of the links in the description below. And I think we will definitely need to do a follow-up, because there were still so many things I needed to ask you. But for now, again, thank you for tuning in to the AmeriCorps Alums Network. And we'll be back here soon with some more great conversations. So thank you, and see y'all later.
Stay safe, everybody. Thanks, Nikki.
Thank you.
Talk soon.
Okay.